Hello everyone. Welcome to second webinar of our alumni series on microservices using Spring Cloud. May there are many more to come ahead. I'm really happy to share that Zartab, our speaker for today, is one of the few alumni who have become entrepreneur in their career ahead. He has been associated with us for quite a time. He did certificate courses, training programs, workshops for our students. Even he provided internship to few of them. I really appreciate him to promptly accepting my invitation and suggesting the topic too for today's discussion. Today's webinar is going to focus on quite an upcoming new domain, microservices, why they are required, how it is different from the concept that you already know, and how to implement it with Spring Cloud. I urge all participants to be interactive during the session through chat box. Put the queries in the chat box as and when they come to your mind without judging it, because it's very necessary in the virtual session like this for participants to be more interactive. Have a great learning ahead. I call upon Shalini to introduce our speaker for today.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shalini Singh, and I'm from SYBSC. It gives me an immense pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Mr. Zartab Nakwa, founder and CEO for Astrix Solutions. Mr. Zartab Nakwa works as a freelance corporate trainer and IT consultant. Mr. Zartab Nakwa completed his post-graduation from Ram Narayan Ruia in the year 2012 and 13. Over last 5 years, Mr. Zartab Nakwa have provided corporate training on various technologies, such as specialized in Java, training for Java, Spring Framework, microservices using Spring Boot and Spring Cloud, JavaScript technologies like Angular and React, Big Data Hadoop, Apache Spark, containerization services like Docker and Kubernetes. Mr. Zartab Nakwa also provided online training to employers around the globe under his own venture and have also trained many batches for Udreka and Ematicus on Big Data Hadoop and Spark technologies. Over last 5 years, Mr. Zartab Nakwa have been actively working as lead project consultant for Coca-Cola UAE for their B2B portal, EDI, and mobile app development. So, without further delay, I request Mr. Zartab Nakwa to take over. Over to you, sir.
Okay, so hi guys, how are you? I hope you all are doing very well and would like to thank Megha ma'am and Shalini for an introduction. Right now, I'm getting goosebumps listening to the words I got from Megha ma'am. It means a lot. And today's session, I've taken a lot of online trainings, but seriously, guys, today when I'm going to talk, I don't have any butterflies in my stomach because it is more like speaking to my own family. And I have a lot of memories around and with the Ruia College. As Mega Ma'am said, I was surprised when Shalini said I got post-graduated actually in year 2012-13 because I have been visiting Ruia College after becoming corporate trainers just for certificate training programs and other sort of training programs, or just even where I used to drop by. So it doesn't feel like it has been like around 8 years I have been post-graduated. It's an awesome feeling that I always have. And quickly in the chat box, can you give me a quick introduction about yourself, guys? Like, what are you guys doing these days? I'll just keep on reading it on the chat and we can carry on ahead. And I hope you all are doing well in this lockdown. I pray and hope you are safe. Yes, can I get? I just want to know, like, like who is my audience today. So I just want you to put up your, I will get your name, just put up which class you are, or you are a working professional if you are an another alumni visiting the workshop, in the chat box.
All the participants are requested to write it down.
Okay, Arjun Nair, student.
If possible, just mention your
Great.
class.
Great. So Kanchan is from MSc, Shraddha from MSc CS, FIBSc, Rushabh SYBSc. Cool. MSc IT. Great. Great. So a lot of people from MSc and BSc here. So that's great, guys. So I hope you're spending a lot of time in the college, in the quadrangle, and on the katta outside. So I really miss the quadrangle and the katta. So just going ahead, as Shalini introduced and Megha ma'am introduced, my name is Jartab Nakwa. I'm founder and CEO for Asterix Solution. Has been in the training industry for last 9 years now, and again, like as vast is my training experience, I have also been a project consultant for this long, and I come up with a lot of experience. And today I'm going to talk about the microservices. But before I go ahead, would just like to what you can say, extend an olive branch of appreciation to the Department of Computer Science, and especially Megha ma'am for supporting us. We were the first batch of MSCIT guys, and the amount of support we got from all the trainers have been very awesome, and the knowledge we have been given, even in that time, 2012 2013, IT was just coming up. Still people were very much logged in into Java, but we were encouraged by our trainers to go into and search for various technologies as well. And here we are. And again, speaking on behalf of all my other classmates, all I am in touch with, we all are doing very well in IT, and obviously we are very much grateful to the IT department of Ruya College. And let's start for the today's session, guys. I'm going to talk about a very important technology, something called as microservices. So how many of you have heard of microservices? Can you tell me how many of you have heard of microservices? You guys, those who have cleared their MSc, sorry, those who are in your MSc and those who are in the last year, you must be working on some project right now, right? You will be starting off with some project. So are you aware about the concept of microservices? Yes, guys. See, this is not going to be just I speak only session. You'll have to interact with me in the chat box. It will make this time more wonderful for all of it. Yeah. So that's cool. So I'm going to talk about microservices. What I call this is, see, this is no word called as current future. It is something I made up because currently we are working upon it. Yeah, we are working upon it. Okay. Someone, I guess, changed the flow.
Hello? I think somebody has by mistake can share their screen.
Yeah, somebody did in between. No worries.
Edit pin Zartab screen.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've already introduced myself, and yeah, so a lot about it. I've worked with a lot of companies. You name the company, and I've either worked with them or provided them the corporate trainings. I have been expanding a lot, and proud to share this with all of you. And just to share that, see what we guys used to do. This is like one of our favorite photograph from our master's days. I just went into the archive. I lost my old laptop, so I don't know where I lost my photograph, but I was able to pull out this too. Yeah, so it still gives me goosebumps looking at the quadrangle and remembering our time. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
me
hope.
too. You were our first batch.
Yeah, I frankly remember you coming in for the first paper while we were giving in there at our center. So
Yes.
it was like a wonderful moment for all of us having support from you like that. And we really miss Ruya College.
You're always welcome. You can come anytime.
Sure, after the lockdown, we'll come there.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Okay. Okay, guys. So what I'm going to talk about today is why do we need microservices? How it helps to us? How are you going to do it using the Spring Boot? Yes, how Spring Boot and cloud works actually together, and yes, how do you do the load balancing in microservices? So now, as we are going ahead, let us try understand what exactly this concept of microservices is all about. Yeah, what this concept of microservices is all about. Now, how many of you have created a MVC based project or a simple project, a CRUD application, create, read, update, delete, that's it. A login into the application, look at something, and then just go ahead. For your TY project, or can you tell me what application you guys have been creating till now? Any application you guys have created? It can be a small login application, or it can be any simple application which you guys have already created. Okay, so grocery management system, yes, website, a simple login logout chat room, that's great. Soumya, Rushabh, Manali, Notepad, that's great. Aisha says disease prediction using ML, that's really great to hear. You guys are working on machine learning. Pooja says cruise management system. Meshwa says event management website. Shraddha, a website for Mumbai Police. That's great. Others, anything? Yeah, animal adoption website. And what was the front end and the back end technologies you guys used? Yeah, what was the front end and the back end technologies you guys were using? Android app based on image detection. That's great. Java with HTML. Cool. Okay, Java and MySQL. Mobile shopping website. Android Studio, ASP.NET. Okay, .NET. Online bus book ticketing front end Java with Visual Studio, great. Python and XML. Okay, so when you create your application, do you make it in a layer? Do you work with any architecture? Do you have any architecture in the mind, or you just keep on going ahead with that? Like you start making the application and then you go with the flow. When you start, let's say, grocery management system, so when you start creating an application, obviously, see, when it comes to the industry, the first thing you need to understand is you need to put up the architecture very well. If you mess up with the architecture, always, how many of you have actually, I think so you must have gone through this and would have went into some problems that with the poor architecturing system in the initial part, you must have lost, or once you have gone ahead in the project, you must seem so that this project is not working very well. Yeah, this project is not working very well. How much you have agree with me on this part? Yeah, can I get a quick round of answers on this one? That if your architecture doesn't match properly, as and when you keep on going ahead, you will always mess up with the flow. Okay, that's a quite lot of yes. So now I just want one more thing you need to understand is how many of you how many of you actually feel that the projects you do in the college and projects you do in the industry have lot of differences in them, obviously in the terms of size and everything, obviously there will be difference, but and according to you, yes, obviously there is, I won't deny on that. I was, yeah, okay, 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 that's great. Obviously I understand the college trains us, Arjun, but I would like to contradict on you in this point. What we do in our college academic project and what we have in the real project is very different, but the college project actually lays the foundation for our project what we are going to do in the corporate. And you believe it or not, when I got the project from Coca-Cola, it was more like I was more of a college sort of trainer. I was doing corporate trainings. I knew the technologies. I had the knowledge of developing projects for small term companies, but building the project for Coca-Cola was something. It evolved me as a developer. Yeah, it evolved me. I got to know that what I think so is very much right is actually not right, because when you get like 100 of hits per second for placing the orders across the 4 countries in the Middle East, I know what the load on the machine has to be. And our machine, what we feel, the load balancing is something, or what you can say, the way in which your application manages the load is a very, very, very important. Yes, Aisha, I completely agree that college builds a base for the technology, and how to use that technology is something you guys need to prepare yourself for. And you can do that step by using your college projects. When you're doing working for your last year project, see, I have always inspired, I have also trained the people in Ruya College as well after I post graduated. And uh, and I had some of the people working for my company on my real corporate projects as well. Now the thing is you can take up your last year college project as some, you can say, it can be your um, for only an academic project, or you are building the base for yourself. So you guys need to understand that, and microservice is actually a way of doing that. So now see, as per the flow of the PPT, I had to actually show you that what microservice is all about. So microservice are the way of breaking a large software project into a loosely coupled module which communicate with each other through simple application programming interfaces. Are you all aware about the APIs? Are you all aware, heard of the concept of APIs? Now this one, I guess all of you must have been doing that. API should not be something old, the terminologies which you haven't used. Yeah. So can you give me one quick example about API, guys? Whatever you have used like API in the API part. Yes. For the APIs, what you have used, what APIs you guys have been working upon. Google Map API is very great. Yes. Then you have got a lot of other online APIs available where you can just log in here. You have Zomato, you have Make My Trip. All of them provide a lot of open APIs which you can just go check and implement it in your project. It's really nice to hear people, you guys are using these things in your project. So how about I come back to this screen in a while, but for now let us try understand through an example why do we need a microservice. Because microservice, try understand that microservice is more of that you are breaking a whole project, what you normally do. Yeah, what you normally do in your real project, you are doing what you're trying to break that down into various single project. Yeah, you are trying to break that particular project down into lot of various small projects so that it can be actually managed in a very simple way. Now let's talk about any of your application, or let's say, okay, let us go ahead. So now I have this idea where I'm going to talk about this. So now let's say Tom has an idea that they are going to make a website for finding the best hotels to eat based upon the budget you enter. And they have created a website. They have created a web application. Yeah, they have created a web application. Now this is going to be the point where we all are supposed to communicate with each other, and I want you all to understand that it will be more better if you understand the need all by yourself, or rather than me making you explain that how exactly we are going to do this. So now let's say Tom has an idea that they are going to make a web application or a website for finding the best hotels to eat based upon the budget you enter. Yeah. So now you enter, let's say 500 rupees, it will come up with DP's hotel. Yeah. And you enter 100 rupees, it will guide you to Mamaji ka sandwich there. So now you can understand, like, have you understand like what my application was all about. So when we develop this application, it says, okay, your current application looks like this. So can you see? Okay, sorry for this. Yeah, can you see can you see my application architecture, how it looks like? Do you think so? When you create your application actually looks like this? Do you think so? When you create your application actually looks like this. You create a UI. Yeah, you create a UI. You write the business logic. You have the data access layer, and you have the database. Yeah, and you have the database. Have your current applications being based upon this part? Have your current application being based upon this part? Yes, guys. Your current application have they been based upon this? Like when you create your own application, you use HTML for the front end, right? You use HTML for the front end. Yes, you guys use HTML for the front end, and then what do you use for your business logic layer? Yeah, what are the things that you use for your business logic layer? Yes, what are the software, what are the APIs which you framework which you guys use for your business logic layer? Are you aware of some? You must be using something called as Tomcat, or you must be using ASP, right? Or you must be using PHP. And what normally goes in your data access layer? Yes, what is your favorite database where you used to implement? Yes, Soumya, if you are using REST, you are doing very well actually. But yes, this session is more or less about the REST APIs. What I'm going to show you upon. Yes, others, can I please get some answers? Like whoever have created the applications, like grocery management, event management. What was your business logic layer? Was it Tomcat, or were you guys working on ASP, or were you guys working on PHP? So what exactly were you guys doing in your application? Yeah, you some says PHP. Yeah, ASP. A lot of people coming up with ASP. Yeah. Now the next thing I need you to understand that, see, you have got the data access layer. Now the next thing is, do you think so? This if we create a web application like this, it is going to be a hit? Is it going to be a hit idea? Do you think so? If it is based upon, like, you enter the budget and we'll recommend you the hotels nearby based upon what you can eat there, do you think so this idea is going to be a hit? Yes. And if this idea is going to be a hit idea, do you think so this idea will be more better when it comes to an Android application or an iPhone application? Do you agree with me on this part? That yes, if implemented properly, obviously yes. And do you think so if I implement this idea, then there will be a lot of demand? So that what happened with Tom's user all over the social media were demanding only one thing: please launch the application for Android and the Apple phones. Yeah, please launch the application for the Android and the Apple phones. Now one thing you need to understand here very properly. Yes guys, one thing you need to understand here very properly is that when you start an application, and when you create, see what happened when you do here is, can I say your UI layer is actually the part of your application when you're working on a monolithic application type? When you're working on a monolithic application type, do you think so that your UI part, that is your HTML page, is actually on the server? So can I say your UI is actually on the server itself? The way you are handling the UI is actually your view layer. Your view layer is actually embedded inside the server. How many of you agree on this part? How many of you have agree on this part, that when you are working on a web application, all of these are very tightly coupled? All of these are very tightly coupled. So that means if you are writing an HTML page, HTML code, and when you try to communicate it with the business logic layer, it will never, yeah, it will always be very tightly coupled. Do you know the difference between tight coupled and the loose coupled thing? Do you know the difference between tight coupled and the loose coupled thing? Loosely coupled and tightly coupled? Do you all know the difference between them? Yes, everyone, anyone not knowing any difference? I'll just, it will be a very important part, because when you plan the architecture for a website, you need to understand that what is the difference between a tightly coupled and a loosely coupled thing. Yeah, you need to understand what is the difference between a tightly coupled and a loosely coupled thing. Okay, so for those who are giving the answer as no, let me just quickly, yeah, let me just quickly show you how this applications what I'm saying will be looking like. Yeah. So guys, can you see this bottle? Can you see this bottle? Now the cap of this bottle and this bottle, can I say they are tightly coupled? The cap of this bottle, I cannot use this cap on any other bottle. Can I use this cap on any other bottle now? It is only supposed to be on this particular bottle. Yeah, if I have the exact same bottle, it will still work. But if I go and take another 500 ml Pepsi bottle, will it work? It won't work. Are you understanding? This is what we call as a tightly coupled application. This is what we actually call a tightly coupled application, where this cap will only work with this particular bottle and no one else. But if I talk about my mobile phone, yeah, if I talk about my mobile phone, now this uses a Type-C cable. So now my mobile is from Asus. So now can you say that my brother uses a Samsung phone and his mobile is also a Type-C cable. So will his cable actually work on my phone? Will his Type-C cable, will I be able to charge my Type-C cable on this one? But both of our phones are actually from different vendors. Don't you think so? My phones are from different vendors. Yes, but my phones are from different vendors. Still it will work. Why? Because they are loosely coupled. Yeah, why? Because they are loosely coupled. So I hope you have understood the difference here. Yeah, I hope you have understood the difference here very clearly, that what I was trying to explain. Yes, so now let us go back to the Tom thing and try understand this now. Okay, so now you have understood. Now the moment you start creating your own application, what will happen next? Now you start creating your own application, what will happen next? The UI was tightly coupled. Yeah, the UI was actually tightly coupled with the UI was tightly coupled with my actual application. Now the moment I say that I need to go on my, yeah, they have requested for Android and iOS app. Now where do you think so my view part will come from? Where do you think so my view part will come from? Are you getting my problem? As a developer, are you getting my problem? That now I need to create a view part, but the view part is not with me. The view part is not with me. Are you getting my point? Where is my view part actually as per you? Yes, if I create an Android or an iOS application for this whole system, where will be my view part going on? Don't you think so? My view layer will actually be on my mobile now, and it won't be basically a part of this application. Yeah, it won't be like a part of my server application. Why? Because what happened? Can you access the UI of an HTML directly using your mobile? Yes, but how? By using a browser. Can you use the Android application directly using a browser? Can you use an Android application directly using a browser? That's not going to happen, right? Yes, that's not going to happen. Now, don't you think so here we will be having a problem? Now the Tom's company decide, yeah, now the Tom's company decide, how about we, obviously because the clients are asking for the Android and the iOS application, we need to launch the application. Yeah, we need to launch the application. Now can you guys tell me, I just wanted to check, like are you like some place able to understand what the problem could be? Let us just try to understand this. So what do you think so will happen when we try to, yeah, when we try to go around and create the Android application? But does that mean that you are going to get the rid of the website? Does that mean that you are going to get the rid of the website? No, we need to run both the application at the same time parallelly. We need to run both the application at the same time parallelly. Don't you think so? We need to run both applications at the same time parallelly. Yes, because I need to have my website also going on, and now I want to come up on my Android and iOS application. Now, what do you think so will be the biggest problem? Looking upon this part and this part, what I've said, that when you are in this particular area, your UI is very tightly coupled with the whole application. Whereas when you go to the Android application, what will happen? Your view part is actually in your pocket, in your mobile, the moment you open the app. But now can you tell me, is your application going to be a standalone application, or you require an application to communicate over the internet? How many of you uses M indicator? The architecture of an application and website is very different. Yes, Soumya, yes, very good question. That architecture of a website and application will always be very different, but based upon the architecture of the, but now, yes, obviously the architectures are different, but you need to understand one thing, that as a business manager I need to take care, as a costing manager I need to take care that I'm not going to maintain multiple things just to maintain up my website and application. So that is the reason, that is the place where actually microservices help us a lot. So now can you yes, so now can you tell me, the based upon the architectures are different, I will be having some problem. So now they launch a smartphone application with a following architecture. Now this architecture is nothing but the microservices. Yeah, this architecture is nothing but the microservices. Now before we go ahead, can you tell me that, see, there are two types of Android application. One application is actually a standalone application. Yeah, one application is actually a standalone application. Can you tell me one example of a very good standalone application, or which is running on Android? Which is running on Android? It has been a part of our college life as well. Yeah, it has been a part of our college life as well. Can you tell me one example of a standalone application which is working for a very long time? Yeah, for a very long time. How many of you know about M indicator? How many of you have M indicator in your mobile? Yes. So can you tell me, M indicator is a, if you just leave out, the live chatting application part, can I say that M indicator is actually a standalone application? Even if your internet is not working, M indicator is of use to you. Yes, M indicator is of use to you. How? Because the database of the M indicator is actually inside the application. Because the database of the M indicator is actually inside the application. So does M indicator, let's say, while I was in the college, M indicator never used to communicate with the internet. We used to use Android while we were in the college, but we only used to do what, we only used to check the timing of the train. M indicator was not the M indicator what you are seeing it today. Today something goes wrong, you get it on the chat box, right? You get it on the chat box. So the thing is, when M indicator was only, so can I say even M indicator in its previous days was more like this, but inside your Android phone. But inside your Android application, inside your Android operating system, your M indicator was more like this. Again, the UI was basically coupled with the business logic in the database layer inside the phone itself. It was actually working inside the phone itself. So what went wrong here? Yeah, what happened here is, when, now can you say, can I say Facebook can work without internet? Can I say Facebook can work without internet? Can I say Facebook can work without internet? Your application, yeah, yes, it's not possible. Instagram, Facebook, will that be able to work with the application? No. Now, is your Android application UI actually a XML file? Or, because some of you have actually worked with the Android applications, as you have stated earlier. So what does your Android applications UI made up of? What is your Android applications UI made up of? Is it an HTML file which will contact a PHP page and it will give you return back in an HTML contact or HTML format? Do you think so? Do you think so? That your Android application UI is actually, is it an HTML page? No. Is it an XML page? Yes. So what do you think? So when you make the call to the backend, when you ask the Facebook, give me the next updates, you do that, pull down the thing from the top, you pull your screen from the top, and it just reloads. What it does, it goes back and communicate with the microservices. It goes back and communicate with the microservices. It goes back and communicate with the microservices. Now this microservices can all be sharing a single database, or this each microservice can actually be having a database which is basically shared by all of them. But the thing is, here you need to give me an answer now, that what according to you will be the communication protocol amongst both of them? Yeah, what will be the communication protocol amongst both of them? This UI of Android is actually, when it is trying to make a call with the microservice. Yeah, when it is trying to make the call with the microservice, what do you think is exactly happening? Is it passing the HTML detail back to the UI of the Android, or anywhere it is making a call, or anywhere it is making a call? Is it making an HTML response back? Am I getting an HTML response back, guys? What do you think so? When I make a call to the API, yes, someone of you said REST, that your middleware was basically on the REST. So what does the REST communicate with? Yeah, what is the data transform format in which the REST communicates with each other? Yes, guys. So the thing is, the UI, because your Android application is not an HTML page and not a part of it, it will have to communicate with the microservices over a network. And when they communicate over a network, they pass the data in the JSON format and they fetch the data back in the JSON format. Very good, Purva. That the data is always being done what? Always sent in the JSON format, and it is always received back in the JSON format. So once this particular thing start, this XML is an okay. Why not XML is what Soumya asking. So why not XML is because XML is actually now an old version. Yeah, it is more like a Symbian phone. No one use that. We use XML for configuration files, but good thing see, XML was actually it was first what you can say. It was the first accepted language by all the languages, Java, PHP. Everyone can read the XML. The thing is, reading the XML requires a lot of libraries and it's a very complex format. Comparatively, JSON is a very easier format. So that is why all of them have actually shifted to that. But a lot of microservices actually gives you an option that if you want to switch the output to XML, they can also give you the output to XML. Now, why do you think so that when this what do you think so that when these people are actually talking about JSON, and if some old company is still working with XML? So that is the reason a lot of companies still have support, so that the application which are working on the traditional architecture still survive in this scenario. It should not happen that because they have come up with some new language, they should not be able to access that. So that is the overall scenario what we want to understand here. Now, next is they have a problem. Yeah, don't you think so? They will have a problem now. Just look at the screen for a minute, read the text, and please tell me you understand the problem. Because every time they need to make an update. Yeah, so much so just to change the address. Yeah, just to change the address. When you are loading something, you wanted to load the data in a particular next format now, or let's say you are now starting to cover up. Let's say you have added a new feature that if it is not in your area, you will go around in another area. Sorry, you will actually, if you, let's say I stay in Navi Mumbai, but now I want to use this application and I want to say that I don't want to do it in from my area. I want the option of location selector. Earlier it was like you put on the location, I will only give you the hotels nearby you. But next I thought, okay, why not? How about let people in Navi Mumbai, if they want to travel, let me just check their budget and show them what hotels they can eat in the famous areas of Mumbai. So what will happen now? Yeah, so what will happen now? So what is the one problem I am facing here is every time they need to make an update. Don't you think so? They need to do it for 2 times. Don't you think so? They will need it to do it for 2 times. One, they need to make the same deployment in the one is they need to make the same deployment in where they need to make the same deployment in their monolithic application. Another is they need to do the same for another application. So is this a valid, or is this will this be an accepted way? Will this be an accepted way? What do you think so? And can you tell me, like, if not, what should be the possible solution to this? What should be the possible solution to this? There are solutions available and we are going to talk about that. But can you tell me what could be the possible solution to this? Because microservice is already in the architecture. And you know what? The solution I'm going to talk about have actually led to the boom what microservices actually brought into the picture. Yeah, I will come across the boom which is microservices actually brought into the picture. So now can you tell me what, according to you, one of my biggest problem is what? Every time I need to make sure that every time when I am updating anything, I am doing this stuff for 2 times, and it is costing me a lot. Don't you think so? Don't you think so? Every time I make an update, it will always cost me a lot. I have to first do it for the monolithic architecture, that I have to do it on my web application. Then I have to come and make the changes on my microservice architecture. Now, what do you think so? Which of this service can be retained? Which of these services can be retained and can be used as one copy for all? Which of these services can be retained and can be used as one copy for all? And just don't tell me microservices, because we are doing the session on microservices. If you tell me microservices, support your answer with anything you think of. Because the data is actually communicating with the microservices, and as per what we have seen, my UI is actually communicating directly with the business logic in the data access layer. The biggest problem I'm going to face is how to shift the UI out of here. Don't you think so? This can be the only solution. Why? Because mobile phones are not going to move out of this architecture. Is there any chance of doing that? Do you think so? Is there any chance of moving this Android UI outside the microservice architecture? Or the second option would be like make an application like M-Indicator. Give the update every 10 days, add the new hotels, add whatever you want. Will that be that will be a lot of problem. Why? Because people don't update the app that frequently nowadays. Yeah, people don't update the app that frequently nowadays. So if you see, even in your application, whatever application you are using frequently, maximum things are managed by the microservice. Yeah, maximum things are actually managed by the microservice. So what exactly happened there is when you try to call, so I know for sure that I cannot shift out the microservices from my business application. The only chance I have to do is what? To take out the UI from this monolithic application and shift it out as a standalone application. Do you have any idea what technology do we use nowadays so that my UI is standalone on the HTML itself and it does not depend upon the underlying business logic layer directly? Have you ever heard of it? Any technologies you guys are aware of? See, the solution is quite simple. Shift everything to microservice. How? Yeah, how? See. Now, this is how the solution looks like. Have you guys heard of languages called as Angular, React, and Vue.js? Have you guys heard of the languages called as Angular, React, and Vue.js? Yes. So these applications. So this is how an overall application with a microservice looks like. Yeah, this is how an overall application of a microservice look like. You have got an Android phone, I can communicate with the microservice using the HTTP calls. You have got an Apple phone, I can communicate with the microservice using the HTTP calls. Now the problem was only with the web UI. So they came up with the technologies called as Angular, React. Now the Angular is the product of Google, React is the product of Facebook. Vue, I am not sure whose its product is, because I am currently working a lot on Angular and React, both for each of one of my clients. And then you have got Apple, and then you have got the Android phone. Now the thing is, they have broken down. Now here, can you see how the architecture looks like here, guys? This is not a monolithic application. Yeah, this is not the monolithic application. Do you think so? For each service, there is no boundary block here. They are not the part of each other. What exactly is happening here? And the diagram what I've shown about the database. Now this database can actually be a single database, or you can use multiple database across the scenario. Now the thing is, when you make a call to the login service from the Android, from the Apple, or from the React, it doesn't matter. Only thing matter is what are you clearing the security constraints that we are going to talk about in some time. Are you passing me the parameters I have asked for? In what format, guys? In the JSON format. The to and fro of the data happens here in what format? Here it happens in what format? It happens in the JSON format. So the thing happening here is, when you make a call to any of the streaming service, any of the file upload service, any of the service, what is it? First, you need to make a call to the login service. Once the login service logs you in, what will happen? It will give you a token. So that token is something you need to keep on passing again and again and again to every single service. If you find the service and they find that you are a registered token, what will happen? They will accept your call, go and communicate with the database. Now, do you think so streaming service is actually worried about what is happening with the login service? Do you think so streaming service is actually worried about what is happening with the login service in this architecture? Can you get a feel that your Can you get a feel that your application can actually look like this? Can you get a feel that your application can actually look like this? If you are able to shift your application from from your classic HTML format to React and Angular format. For example, let's say the event management system, the grocery management system, the applications you guys have spoken about with me. Now, do you think so that when you create your own application like this, is there a chance you can actually break down all the services one by one? Rather than having one big accumulated project, you can actually, focus upon that one project, or that one particular scenario where you want to go ahead with. Are these services stored as a separate element of the database? No, these are basically not the part of the database. See, have you all, like, when someone spoke about that they have used the Google API. So these all services are nothing but the APIs, and they are embedded inside a microservice. So microservice is basically the one who manages this all services. So what happened here is these services are stored. Yes, basically they are stored separately, but they are not the part of the database. Yeah, they are not the part of the database. They are more like a Java class, or it can be a Python class, it can be a PHP class, it can be. The best thing about the service is that login service can be written in Java, sign up service can be written in .NET, streaming service would have been written in let's say any other language. Do you know how is it possible to do that? Do you know the element which is making it possible to make it that language is not a constraint here? API, yeah, exactly. No, but like, one question I want to ask everyone now, looking upon the scenario here, do you think so? Yeah, because this login service can be launched anywhere, this sign up service can be launched anywhere, the streaming service can be launched anywhere, and they can be, in fact, in any language they want. Do you know what is the factor which allows them to be in any language they want? Do you know what is the factor that allows it to be in any language they want? The factor is actually on your screen right now. Can you just have a quick observation and tell me that what exactly is making it? Yes, exactly, Shama. Yeah, the thing is that when you make a call, see, HTTP call doesn't matter. You don't know when you say www.google.com, and when you say www.ruiacollege.com, or when you say www.codewithz.com, you don't know the language in which that website is created, right? You just make a call, and once you make a call, the thing is, if you have to pass any data, you are passing the data in the JSON format. Now, even if it is a PHP, even if it is a Java code, if it's in .NET code, what will happen? All these three will return you in what language? The response will be in what language? The response will be again in JSON format. That is the reason, using the microservice, you have got one of the most important thing is that the technology lock-in is never a problem. You can use any technology you want for implementing this whole application. So if I again go back to my definition now, I hope this definition will be now a very clear one to you. Microservices are the way of breaking the large projects into the loosely coupled modules which communicate with each other through simple application programming interface. Is everyone clear with this now? Are you getting the hint? I know it's a very vast. See, the thing about microservice, it's a very simple topic. But as and when you go ahead for exploring it, you will understand that there is no topic more complex than this one. Yeah, but for implementation of the project way, this is going to be a very easy one. So now, can you see? I've got an API gateway, and using the API gateway, I am actually talking. So what it says, microservices are the way of breaking the large software projects into the loosely coupled modules. What is it saying? That it is a way of breaking large software projects into the loosely coupled modules which communicate with each other through what? Which communicate with each other through simple application programming interfaces. That is nothing but your APIs. Yeah. So moving ahead now. So we have seen this streaming service, how it works. Now, what are the basic advantages of using the microservice? You know, one of the biggest company, and which is actually a very, what you can say, आप लोग का लॉकडाउन का साथीदार है वो company. There is a company which is actually helping you to get through this lockdown very well, is the biggest user of microservices. Are you aware of that? Can you just take a guess at the company which is the biggest user of microservices in the world? and which was actually a revolutionary company, which was actually bringing up there. No, not TCS. Yeah, Amazon also does that. Have you heard of something called as Netflix? This is a very wrong question to say that have you heard of. Obviously, you all must have been using a Netflix a lot in these days. And do you know it was one of the first company to come out of the microservice architecture and come into the microservice architecture. And you know what was the motivation behind that? You know what was the motivation behind that? In 2010, a developer from Netflix missed, yeah, YouTube also, but a developer from Netflix in 2010 missed a semicolon in the code, and the Netflix was down for around 10 hours. Netflix was down for around 10 hours. Now the thing is, do you think so? Like it, because it was a very, what you can say, tightly coupled application, it was becoming a problem for Netflix to actually take care of it, because it was working under a monolithic application. What happened? One went down, yeah, one went down. The whole other applications were actually, every single module that Netflix have crashed. Do you think so this should happen in today's world? If one module is going down, only that particular module should be down and not all the others. Yes, if that particular thing is down, that should actually go down and not all the others. Yes, don't you think so? That if you're working whatever architecture part we have in today's world, don't you think so this should be actually the scenario where when we are actually talking about this particular sort of applications, this is how we should be actually dealing it up today. Okay, I want to give you a very simple example. Yeah, very simple means try to understand. Now what happens is, sometimes this is what my mother does. So we are three brothers, and the thing is, if one of three from us is having fever, or having some, like if we are ill, all of three have to eat the same food, which is basically more like a doctor's food, and I'm really not happy about that. I don't think so that happens with you or not, but this happens with me. Please agree with me if that happens with you also, that you're not happy. That when, because for me, like for me, I am not a monolithic application, right? I am a single service. My brothers are single service. I need to go and make that understand to I need to give this session to my mother also, that we are three different microservices. So if one is ill, please feed the doctor's food to one of that individual brother and not all of us. But it happens with all of us, right? So what do you know what is happening? Our mother is actually treating us like a monolithic application. One is down, I'll take everyone down, and we'll make sure that everyone come backs up together. That what happened. Yeah, so we actually pray from the heart for my other brother to get well very soon. But I hope you understand. I'm just joking around, but you need to understand the scenario here, that when we talk about the application, our mother treat us like an individual application. But no, but when we go out, yeah, when we are obviously we are a child, but when we go out, so what happens? Improved fault isolation. Yeah, when I say improved fault isolation, what is happening here is that when my application is actually running, if one microservice go down, only that microservice goes down. Yeah, only that microservice goes down, not everyone goes down. So Netflix, like in 2011-12, was actually started shifting into the microservice application for the same and the first reason. Second thing is eliminate the vendor or the technology lock-in. Yeah, eliminate the vendor or the technology lock-in. So now what happened, that when you're talking about eliminate or the vendor, I've actually spoken about this, right? So now each and every application, you need not to have this sort of running. Yeah, for each and every application you need not have this sort of running. What will happen? You can just write a simple eliminate vendor. Like you can write one application is hosted on, let's say, ASP, one application is hosted in Spring Boot, doesn't matter. Until unless your UI is actually able to make the calls, you will be able to do that. Now next is what? Ease of understanding. Now this is something this is something which you need to understand very easily. When you're working with Spring Boot properly, you will feel, and it's like just 3 hours with me and you can understand Spring Boot from end to end, and you won't even realize that you are actually working inside Java. Yeah, you won't even realize you're actually working inside Java. Why? Because with Spring Boot and other new end technologies, they have come up with the new technology that is something called as RAD, that is Rapid Application Development. I think you must have heard of it, Rapid Application Development. You must have heard of it, Rapid Application Development. Now, what exactly happened in the Rapid Application Development is that when you create an application, it doesn't wait for you. Yeah, it says, okay, rather than you breaking your sweat over how to load the data from JDBC, how to load the application, how to make the UI form, it says you just concentrate on the business logic. I will take care of the all other things. Yeah, I will take care of the all other things. So I know, as per what, because I have been running company actually from while I was in Ruia College. I was an entrepreneur way back then. So the thing is, when I started there, I knew that if I have to develop an application, it will at least take me 10 days to just make up the UI and all the other parts. But with the Spring Boot and the other application, what it used to take me 10 days in 2012, it hardly take me 3 hours in 2020 now. So we have been actually covering a lot of gap, and with this new technologies, it is very easy and very implemented way. Now the next part is smaller and the faster deployment. Now the thing is, you know, uh, how many of you have worked with Tomcat, Apache Tomcat, or any sort of PHP as well? Have you, any of you have worked on it? Tomcat, well, ASP, very well. I guess some of the first year students are also here. So you must have worked on PHP. Now you know that if you want to write a one more PHP file, or if you want to write one more module, you need to refresh the whole server. You need to refresh the whole server. You know that when you work with if you guys, those from masters and others area, if you guys have worked with Apache Tomcat, you know anytime you deploy a Java file, you need to go and update your web.xml, or you need to just go and say redeploy. Does that happen with you? Does that happen with you? It should be happening. Yeah, it should be happening basically. Why? Because that's the part in which the monolithic application actually works. Don't you think so? Yes, guys, those who have been working on middleware technologies, anytime you make a system difference, you need to refresh the whole server. Yes. Now, one question I have is that if you do that on a real production server, the production server actually means when your application is live on that server, we call that server as a production server. So do you think so? Can you do this on a real production server? Can you do this on a real production server? Let's say, I'll give you a scenario. Let's say you are building an application for Ruia College admission forms. You are building an application for Ruia College admission form. Do you know how many people fill up the form for the Ruia College in the whole month? Sorry, when the results are out. So let's say from the month of April to July, don't you think so? Ruia College website will have a lot of traffic, and you have developed admission form application for this year. Because of the lockdown, not people were not able to fill it. I guess there must be a system in place. I'm just giving you an hypothetical situation. Now from 9 to 5, can you even dare to refresh the server? Can you even dare to refresh, having a downtime of 1 minute? You don't know how many people are filling the form at the same time, at the time. But you think so, but you have a requirement to launch something right now. Yeah, the principal or anyone needs something right now. How is it possible? It can be possible using the microservices. Now, and the scalability. Now scalability is basically what? That once your one particular service, okay, let's talk about scalability in a while. Now the next is what? That what are the disadvantages of using the microservices? Now, one of the major disadvantages about microservice is that when you use microservice, the communication between the different micro applications, APIs, when I talk about these APIs, the communication among themselves, for example, the login service will sometimes require the database service, or the streaming service might require the file upload service. So the communication between them is a bit complex. Next, the more the number of services I'm using, more my resources are used. But the resources, basically, they are not a major thing for me. Now debugging problems can be a bit harder when it comes to here. Why? Because if your whole application goes down, as many as services, as many as logs will be created. And when I say as many as services, as many as log will do what? It will actually create a problem for me. Yeah, so it's a problem. And deployment challenges. So when you deploy, you have to make sure if your service is not affected, and meaning what? That when you deploy a service, it is totally up to you that you have to take care that your service is not affecting some another service. And large versus small product companies. So microservice application is basically what you can say. It is more applicable for the large companies and not for the small companies, because small companies require to make very quick changes and they don't have that much big of architecture to deploy the microservices. Now I'm going to give you a small real case scenario, and then we'll move on and we'll try to understand what exactly the codes look like. Now, how many of you are aware of Money Heist? Have you been through it? Have you been through it? Have you seen Money Heist, guys? It was like something which we all were crazy about during the start of the lockdown, right? It was trending in India. Yeah, it was trending in India. So what will happen now? Yeah, what will happen? So Netflix, what is April 3rd to 2020? Yeah, what was April 3rd 2020? What was April 3rd 2020? What happened on April 3rd of 2020? You know what happened on April 3rd 2020? You know what happened on April 3rd 2020? Actually, the series, the season 4 of Netflix, sorry, for Money Heist was launched, right? The season 4 for Money Heist was launched. Now the thing is, if you guys were working in a monolithic application like this, yeah, if you guys were working on the monolithic application, what we have already spoken about. Okay, now, sorry, I will come back to that point. But before that, can you tell me on April 3rd, 2020, where was, like, which service was getting the maximum hits on Netflix? The service which was streaming Money Heist, or the service which was streaming Chennai Express? Because Chennai Express is also available on Netflix. So can you tell me on April 3rd, 2020, what was happening, that I was, which particular service was getting the maximum hits? Yeah, which particular service was getting the maximum hits? The service which was, yeah, the service which was streaming the Money Heist, or the service which was streaming the Chennai Express? Yes, guys, can you tell me? Yes, Soumya says Money Heist. Others, can you tell me? Are you understanding that for Netflix now the application looks like this? One of the service is actually streaming what? Money Heist, whereas the other service is streaming the, yeah, whereas the other service is streaming what? It is streaming the Chennai Express. Now, don't you think so? The Netflix should provide more of the scalability or resources to the Money Heist service. Don't you think that? Don't you think so? That Money Heist should, that Netflix should actually provide more resources to the, yeah, it should provide the more resources. Can I say that this point actually covered up something called as scalability? Because I was able to scale my services for Netflix more, I was actually able to do this. So when I share this PPT with you guys, I have actually shared a link here. Yeah, I have actually put up a link here. I'll recommend you all to just read it out once for you guys. It will understand how amazing Netflix implemented this whole architecture. Now, just to compare a last point before we jump into the practical part. Now, can you see in the monolithic application? Yeah, can you see in the monolithic application what would have happened if my Netflix was on the, yeah, my Netflix was on the monolithic application, and Money Heist and Chennai Express and let's say Suryavansham, all of them are on the same layer. So to accommodate the incoming request for the Money Heist, what I need to do, I need to increase the resources on the whole server. I will have to actually increase the resources on the whole server. Don't you think so? I will actually have to increase the resources on the whole server, rather than online. What I was actually getting here is in the with the microservice, I can actually only increase the resource for the Money Heist streaming service rather than the whole server. Are you getting the difference now? with the microservice you get this particular, yeah, with the microservice you get this particular update. Yeah, this particular provision is actually always given to you. Are you able to understand this part, everyone? That with the money heist thing, like now with this into the picture, this is how you actually deal with this. Yes. So now, okay. So now we need to just understand one thing: what is difference between an API and a microservice? So API is more like a contract which makes the client aware of the underlying service. So you pass me the username, password, and I will return you back what, whether you are a logged in user or not. And second is what, a microservice is an architectural design that separates the portion of a usually monolithic application into small self-containing services. Yeah. So it does what? Microservice is an architectural design. We have seen this. Now the thing is, if you want to deploy APIs, you have to do it using what? Spring Boot. If you want to implement microservice, you need to do it using what? Spring Cloud. Now I guess a lot of you have not been well versed, because I think so there are very lot of first year and second year guys in the session today. So no worries about that. What we'll do is we'll try to I'll just go through a small demonstration to show you how you can actually create a service and how you can actually increase the number of services running, so that you, if you want, you can do the load balancing on it as well. Yeah. So let's code, guys. Okay. So I'm going to just show you. Okay, so this is how my Spring Boot application actually looks like. Yeah, this is how my Spring Boot application actually. You all have actually worked with Eclipse. You all have actually worked with Eclipse, guys. You all have actually worked with Eclipse. Yeah. So NetBeans. Okay, NetBeans is also good one for this, but Spring Boot goes well with your NetBeans. Goes well with your Eclipse. And this particular software is called as STS, which is also called as Spring Tool Suite. So how exactly do you create a Spring Boot application? Now, for creating a Spring Boot application, you need to understand one thing. Okay. How you start a Spring application. Yeah, how you start a Spring application. So let me show it to you. You need to go to a website. Yeah, you need to go to a website which is called as start.spring.io. Yeah, which is called as start.spring.io. And now once you are on this particular website, where here you are supposed to create which version of Spring you want to use, what are the dependencies you want to use, and how you are actually going to implement this. So I'm not going to code everything in front of you here, but the thing is, I have created an application and I want to show you how that actually works. Yeah, how that actually works. So now when you start creating a Spring Boot application, this is basically how you create a Spring Boot application. So there are certain dependencies. There are a lot of dependencies available inside Spring. Now, the one I am going to use is Spring Web, which is used for building web, including RESTful application using Spring MVC, uses Apache Tomcat as the default embedded container. And I'm going to take one more dependency from here, which is also called as config server. Yeah, it's a central management for configuration. Yeah, it is also called as Spring Cloud Configuration. So I'm going to take this application, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to here in my group, I'm going to say what exactly I want to make. So my group is basically the name of my what you can say, the name of my package where I want to keep everything. So here what will happen? Yeah, here what will happen? com.ruia is going to be my, yeah, com.ruia is actually going to be my group name, and this application is nothing but a server app. So I'm going to give it what? Server-app, the name of the project. It is always better to put up a description. So I'm going to do what? I'm going to say Ruia Spring Cloud config server. Yes, and you just do what? You just say control enter, and what will happen? It will download the application. Once it downloads the application, what is next thing you need to do is you need to just open this application in your Eclipse. Yeah, you need to open this application in your Eclipse. So what will happen? You'll go and say import. Yeah, you'll go and say import. You'll go to the Maven. Yeah, you'll go to the Maven, and from the Maven you'll select what? You'll select the existing Maven project for yourself and say next. And you need to, okay, before you go ahead from here, what you need to do is actually you need to expand that. So Spring Cloud config, yeah, server app. So what you need to do is, yes, so you have opened the server app here. What I'll do, I'll go to my Eclipse and I'll browse the, yeah, I'll browse the data and I will come back to my downloads. Click on the server app. This will be my root folder, and I'll say finish. And you know what? It will just take 2-3 minutes and I'm done. My application for Spring Boot is completely ready. Now the thing is, when you start creating an application for a Spring Cloud, you need to create a Spring Cloud server first. So what I'm doing here is, what I have done with this server app is I have created a Spring Cloud server now. Yeah, what I've done with this server is actually I've created a Spring Cloud server, so that when I start my application, it will be, yeah, it will be actually help you to, it will actually help you to make your internal service manage very well. So okay, I'm really sorry I didn't share the screen. I didn't switch the screen while I was doing my work here. Really sorry for that. I'll just share my whole screen. That will be better.
Sartab, your screen was visible.
Yeah, so now you can see that my application is here, and I have got my Java code. I have got my Java code. The moment I launch this application, I get the data here. Yeah, the moment I start the application, just a second. Okay. Now, if you want to run this application, only thing you need to do is right click on this server, right click on this and just say run as, and you will say run as Spring Boot. And what will happen now? This application will start running. Yeah, this application will start running. So you say okay, and you can see that my application is starting to run now. Yeah, so it says port 8080 was already defined. Now the thing is, whenever you're working with Spring Boot, the port 8080 is more or less occupied. So it is better that you always go to application.properties. Here there is a file in the resources called as application.properties, and you say server.port is equal to, let's say, 9000. So I save it and I go back to my server, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say run as Spring Boot app. And now this is going to run as a single Spring Boot application. Yeah, it is going to run as a single Spring Boot application. And yeah, so now you can see as this is running. One more thing I just want to show you, that if you want to create, yeah, if you want to create a single API, how you can do that. I'm just going to show you a simple hello world example here, and then I'm going to jump into the application I've already created for you guys. So let's say hello controller. Here the APIs are also called as controller. Now, when you want to create a controller, the first thing you need to mark here in the Spring Boot is something called as @REST controller. Yeah, something called as @REST controller. And here, because if you want to return something, it might look like public string say hello. Yeah, public string say hello. And if you say return hello world, yeah, return hello world. And now what? Because you can either make it a get mapping or you can either make it a post mapping. So what will happen here? You can just say get mapping, and you can say what slash hello. You can say what slash hello, and you can just restart the application. You can just restart the application. You can just restart the application, and what will happen now? Let it. It will just enable that particular API. Yeah, it will just enable the particular API, and now if I just go to my screen, what will happen? Localhost, if I say localhost colon 9000 slash hello, can you see the hello world here on my screen? Yeah, can you see the hello world on my screen here? Everyone, can you see how easy to make a simple, how easy it is to make a simple API here in Spring Boot? I just required not more than 5 minutes to do this. Yeah, next is, see, you can do all the calculation work you want. It's very simple to do that. Let me just show you one more, that how you can return a whole object. When I say, when we are talking about JSON, let's say you create, see the aspect I'm using is not exactly a Java file aspect, but let's say I'm going to make use of a test file. Yeah, I'm going to just make use of a test file, and inside test I'm going to say int id string name int age. Yeah, and I'm going to create a constructor. I'm going to do what? I'm going to go to the source, create a constructor. I'll say generate, and I'll do what? I'll create the setter getter for all of those. I'll do what? I'll create the setter getter for all of those. I'll say generate, and I'll just save it. And in my controller, how I can do, in a single controller, I can actually return more than one. So what I can say, public test demo, method name doesn't matter here. Yeah, what I'm going to do here is test t is equal to new test of 1 comma name. Let's say I put my name, and I put my age here, and I do what? @ get mapping slash test. Yeah, and I'm going to do what? Say return t. Now I'll just restart this application. Yeah, I'll just restart this application. I have not configured this application very properly, or else I don't even require to restart my application for actually doing this. So it's very easy for me to just go ahead and implement this. So now let's say if I come back here, and instead of hello, I just replace it with test. Can you see the response, how it changed? Which format is this, guys? Do you recognize this format? Do you recognize the format in which we are getting the output now? Yes. So if you are a developer, yeah, if you are writing a UI code from front end, let's say any one of you is from Android background or doing some Android application development, do you even have to worry about what is the language based upon which you are getting this output? Or you will be actually able to just process this output straight away in your code, irrespective of the underlying language? If you're getting a response like this, will you be able to just process the language what you are getting, process all the code you are getting? Everyone, will you be able to just process this particular output in whatever UI you have, irrespective of the underlying language now? Yes, you will actually be able to do that. So because the thing is, when you deploy the application like this is the power of microservice. You deal everything on the JSON way. Now I have created one small application for you guys, and I'm just going to show you that. Yeah, I have created a small application for you guys. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to shut down this application once, and I'm going to close all the files from here. Okay, so I've created a Spring Cloud configuration server. I've created a Spring Cloud configuration server. So again, I went to my browser. I started a Spring Cloud config server, and what has happened here is I am actually running this server on what port number? I am running this server on port number 8888. Now remember this, for the Spring Cloud server, the standard port is 8888. Yeah, so this server needs to be running. What I have done in this application? Nothing, literally nothing. So just to tell you what I have actually done for you guys is I have my coding blog, codewithz.com, and then I'm going to share a URL with you guys. So I have actually launched, I have written up a page for you guys. So whatever thing I have done to create this whole application, I have listed it step by step for you guys. I hope you, if any one of you want to do this practically, you can just take the link and just follow the code, and you will be able to deploy this everything. Yeah. So what I've done, so I'm just going to show you, I've created a new project with the dependencies first. Then once you have opened up the application, you can just go and open up the Maven project like I did. And what I've done for my application here is I have launched this whole application. I have launched this whole application, and there is not even a single code apart from what I get from the demo I have written in the Spring Cloud. So Spring Cloud is just more like going and just starting on the server. Yeah. So the Spring Cloud is more of just like going and starting on the server. So what you can do now is just go to here and say Spring Cloud configuration server is running. Yeah, you can just say Spring Cloud configuration server is running. So let me start it once. Once this have started, now I'm going to write a client. Now my client is going to be nothing but the microservice. Yeah, my client is going to be nothing but the microservice. So what is going to happen here now is when I started a new application by name what? Spring microservice, and see what I have done. Yeah, see what I have done. I have written particular models here. So the first thing here is I have got my class. See, this class is going to be actually the main class which you will always use. So there is no getting out from here. This is basically the main class I'm always going to use. So what I've done, I have written a controller, and this controller simply does what? You have to pass, yeah, you have to pass your temperature, and you have to give me whether that temperature should be converted from Fahrenheit to Celsius or Celsius to Fahrenheit. Simple example to understand, guys. Simple example to understand. I know I won't be having much time to show you how the databases are implemented on this one, but I just want you guys to understand. Are you all, can I get a quick confirmation you're getting a gist of microservice? Yeah, you're getting a gist of microservice. See, 5 p.m. a lot of you never knew about microservice. 6:24 you are actually creating the microservices, and this is very simple. Only with the basic knowledge of Java, you don't even know to know exactly the Spring framework. Only thing is you need to know a bit about the Spring Boot, and you will be very much fine with this application. So what exactly is happening here? I am creating a mapping here. I am creating an API. Now creating an API earlier only with the Java code is very tough. I think you know that all that part as well. You must have been used HTTP REST clients and all those things, but creating with Spring Boot is very easy. Now what happens here is in your get mapping, I am creating an application by what name? I'm creating an API by what name? Convert. Then I've got something called as from. And when you see I am putting it in a curly braces, it means what? When I say I am doing this in curly brace, it is actually going to be a parameter type value. So what I'm expecting is whether when I run this application, it should run like this. When I run the application, it should run like this. I have actually hosted this on localhost. Yeah, I have actually hosted this on localhost 7000. So if you can see my screen a bit, yeah. Are you able to see the URL, guys? Are you actually able to see the URL? Yes. Okay. So can you see localhost :7000? This is how you. This is where your application is hosted. /convert is the name of your application. /from. So what I've used from, and my from says what? DEG. Yeah, my from says DEG. 2 is in which I want to convert FH, nothing but the Fahrenheit. And what temperature I want to convert from temperature to Fahrenheit? 32. So this all data is given to me in the path variable. So Spring Boot have something called as a path variable. I have taken that string from, string to, and a path variable. And what I've done, I have created a bean now. Yeah, I've created a simple class called as a bean. What it does, it takes the data from to temperature, and it has a converted value. Yeah, it has a converted value. Now what happened is I am passing this into a constructor. I am passing what? I am passing the from, I am passing the to. Can you tell me which part is missing now? Converted value. Yeah, when the degree is converted into Fahrenheit, I don't have the converted value. I'm actually going to make it. So how I do it, I have hosted only a single API. I have hosted a single API which is going to do what? Which is going to convert degree to Fahrenheit and Fahrenheit to degree as well. So I've managed it inside my code. I've done what? I've actually managed it inside my code. So what has happened here? ID is equal to ID, from is equal to from, temperature is equal to temperature. What I've done next is from dot content equals DEG. So if from is telling me to convert from DEG to Fahrenheit, what I've done, I have created a method in my class. It does what? It convert from degree to Fahrenheit using a formula. Yeah, using a formula. You can, if you don't know this formula, you will find it very easily on the internet. You need not worry about it. Yeah, you need not to worry about it. So you know that when you have to convert it from degree to Fahrenheit, this is how you convert. And when you want to convert from Fahrenheit to degree, you just pass it and you will convert it from Fahrenheit to degree. So what happened now next is, sorry. Okay, so now once the data is converted, what happens in my temperature controller? Yeah, in my temperature controller, it converts the bin and it returns back. So what will happen now? I will have to just run this. Yeah, I will have to just run this. So I'm going to run this particular file. Let's see how it works. Okay, so it has started. Now let's say I enter the same value. Can you see the output? Can you see the output? I have passed convert from DEG to Fahrenheit and it is working. Now what I'll do, I'll convert it from Fahrenheit to DEG and I'll say convert 200 Fahrenheit to my temperature. So it says 93.33 and so on. Now the thing is, okay, so is everyone clear till this point? This is a very simple example to create a microservice framework. Yeah, I've just created an API. I've just created an API and I've launched it under the Spring Cloud. You know what? If I would have just launched it as a normal Spring Boot application, this would have been called as what? API. But because I have started it under what? Spring Cloud. I started a Spring Cloud server. I registered this particular application to be a Spring Cloud client server. This particular API is no longer an API, but it will be working as a microservice. So is everyone clear till this point, guys? I know a lot of technical part about it, like a lot of Java codes, would you won't be able to understand that. Obviously, I have created a knowledge abstract for you all. I will be sharing the link. Whatever I have done here, whatever I've been showing you, it's available for you on my blog. You can just go and check it. It's a totally dedicated blog for our today's webinar for my fellow Ruyites. So I'm going, like, it will be not publicly visible. Only those with the link will be able to access it. So the thing is, now you're able to understand this. Now I have a question. This URL started to get, now try to imagine that this particular URL of localhost 7000 is equivalent to what you had in the Netflix of Money Heist. Now what is the first thing you will do now? As per the microservice, what is something else we will get now? What is that we will get as an advantage to ourselves? Don't you think so? Having this particular service running, right? If all the request goes only to the same request or the same URL, will it create a bottleneck? Will it actually create a bottleneck? How do you solve a bottleneck in an MVC application? How do you solve a bottleneck in an MVC application? How you solve a bottleneck in an MVC application? Is anyone aware about that? How do you solve a bottleneck in an MVC application? Let's say now Ruya College website is hosted on cloud and it's developed on the monolithic application, monolithic server. And now you're getting a lot of requests on the admission form. And after some time, because of lot of request overhead, your data is actually your, what you can say, your server is going down again and again and again. How will you solve that? How will you solve that? Is there any way you can actually stop incoming request, that you will say people don't hit on my server? How many of you are aware? I guess a couple of years back, the Chinese there was a University of China whose website went down because one of their candidates' photograph went viral. It was from a convocation ceremony, and lot of people went to their website to just see that photo, and the website went down. Is anyone aware about that? Anyone like have been through that news? So okay, so I don't think a lot of you have heard about that. So the overall scenario was there was a convocation ceremony, and one photograph of their candidate went viral on internet. And once they clicked on Google Photos, it redirected them to their university website, and the whole university website went down because from getting somewhere around 10 to 15 hits per hour, the university website actually got like around 5 lakh hits in an hour. So the server actually went out of capacity, and this was the worst case scenario that happened. And after that, they moved their university website to the cloud. So let's say now, how will you manage in the monolithic application? Because in the monolithic application, I cannot actually host only a single photograph on a server. Or so what we do, we put something called as load balancer in between. Yeah, we put something called as a load balancer in between. Then how it works? How it actually works is you create 2 copies of your monolithic application. Yeah, you host 2 copies of your monolithic application, and they both are connected to the single database. Yeah, and they both are connected to the something called as a single database. And now what will happen? This two same copy of the application are connected to the same database, so that you don't create any problem there. And then on the front end, they put something called as a load balancer. Yeah, they put up something called as a load balancer. And now what happened when the incoming request comes in? What they'll do, what it will one time, it might play even odd algorithm, or it might play any other algorithm, but not all the requests are being sent to the same application, like same copy of the application. But do you think so? Like for the monolithic application, this is a proper scenario. For the monolithic application, this is a proper scenario. But do you think so? It will be a proper scenario when it comes to the microservice? Instead of replicating the whole microservice, what will I do? Instead of replicating the whole application, can I just replicate a microservice? Yes, guys, are you understanding this scenario, that what I am facing here? For a monolithic application, I had to replicate for a single file. I have to make a duplicate of the whole application. But with Spring Cloud and Boot, you need to understand, even on the single cloud, you can create multiple copy of the same running application and put up something called as a ribbon server. Yeah, it's a load balancing ribbon server, but I'm not going to talk about the ribbon server right now, but I'm going to show you how you can create multiple copies of a single server. Let's say you have to go on the play button top here, and you have to click on run configuration. And once you click on the run configuration, you will see that on the left hand side, you will got all the services you are running. What you can do is you can right click on it and say duplicate. Yeah, you can right click on it and say duplicate. And I'm going to do what? I'm going to run this on port number 7002. And to do that, you have to go in your arguments, and in the VM arguments, you need to say -d server.port is equal to 7002. So doing this, you will actually override any internal services you have given. So you have to just say apply, and you'll say run, and you can see that it will start running now. Yeah, you can see it will start running now. And yesterday I have actually created one for 7001 as well. So I'm going to start that also. So how many copies of my single services are running now? How many copies of my single services are running, guys? Yes, how many copies of my single services are running? Not 2, actually 3. How? Because I initially had it running on 7002. What I did, so I'll do what? I'll just paste it here, and instead of 700, I'll say 7001, and I'll have the same thing pasted here, and it will be running on what port now? It will be running also on the port 7002. So can you see how easy it is to use? Now it's obviously not the whole part of the application, but it is basically an architectural working. But without replicating the whole application, this is actually, do you think so this is possible with the MVC based application? Do you think so this is possible with the MVC based application at all? Is there any chance it can be done? Do you think so? By any chance, this can actually be done with the MVC based application? Let's say a particular page of yours is getting a lot of it. You can just on the run create multiple application of it working. And there is one more server called as, it is also outsourced server by Netflix. Yeah, it is an outsourced servers by, it's basically an open source server by Netflix called as a Ribbon server. Now with the Ribbon server, you can actually return, you don't have to do this, that when the call is coming, it basically acts as a load balancer without even going to a cloud. Yeah, without even going to a cloud. So this is basically how you implement the whole load balancing scenario. Yeah, this is how you basically implement the whole load balancing scenario. So over and over, guys, that's it what I wanted to talk about in this particular scenario about my whole application part. So I would be open to any questions if you have about this, what we have done. In the overall scenario, we have spoken about microservices. We have spoken about how the load balancing work. I have tried to cover a lot. I have tried to cover a lot of applications which are working in the real life scenarios, so that you can get more and more fair idea about it. Yeah, you can get a more and more a fair idea about it. So any particular thing, any particular questions you guys have for me in this particular, in context to the topic we have covered? Do you teach microservice application as Asterix? Soumya, but sorry to say, but we have shut down our training, classroom training operations in before, like in 2020 at start of it. So currently we are only operating on corporate trainings and project consultancy. But we are going to launch our own online training portal quite soon. So we'll keep in touch and I'll let you know. So obviously we are going to do the microservices then. Any other question, guys, regarding to this? And so meanwhile, I'm getting your questions. There were some insights I wanted to share with you guys. I hope you can go through this. So this I just tried to make it more of interactive thing. One professional advice Zartab Incorporate would like to give Zartab, who was learning in Ruia College. So something I would have told myself if I would have got a chance 7 years back is I need to learn the concept of clean coding. Now, clean coding is actually a book by Bob Martin. He's also famously called as Uncle Bob in the industry, and you must be aware about him. Yeah, you must be aware about him. And important part is you should know the concept of clean coding. Now, clean coding is something, it helps you to understand how to write your code in an elegant manner, so that the moment you hand over your code to someone else, they are actually able to understand your code very properly. And there should be no mistake in that. Mistake, I mean, not that the way you are coding, but how the way you are representing the code. Because when it comes to the implementation part, you think so, okay, I can just, are you going to name your, let's say 10 years or 10 year, 15 year down the line, when you have your own kids, are you going to name this as kid 1, kid 2, kid 3? So we don't even think of that. So we should treat our programs like our child, and we should put each and every variable giving some meaningful name, so that moment we read it, we should be actually able to understand it properly. That is one of the biggest mistakes I think I was doing when I went out of the college, and I have messed up a lot because of not following the clean code architecture. One of the major thing is we go and write tons and tons of line inside a single method. So that is something I don't think so. I don't think so that that's going to be a very big scenario. You need to understand how you should be writing your own code. So I have given the reference here that you should actually go and understand something called as the concept of clean code. And one more professional advice which I would like you all to give is because it will be a time you will be coming out of your college, focus more on LinkedIn. LinkedIn will actually help you. Obviously, we have our placement cell in the college. but LinkedIn in most of the scenario, if used properly, can help you land up a good job as well. So understand the basic concepts of LinkedIn as well. And going ahead, one personal advice I had for myself is that if you know your stuff well, if you are proper in your technologies, whatever things you are doing very well, I think so the right opportunity finds you at the right time. Only thing is you need to be in the discipline. Now the thing is, when I'm talking about discipline, I am very much sure about it, that you need to be in the discipline, whether it's your college academic project, it's your assignments, or it's how you deal with your real life project. Believe me, the habits you will build during your college life will stay with you for the lifetime. So I can understand habits cannot be overturned over a fortnight, but those who are in first year, second year, those who are in masters now, you still have time. Make sure you guys are implementing your stuff properly. You know you are the master of your field, and then once you go out from that, see, you cannot obviously you for clearing your college academics, you need to master all of them. But at the heart, we all know that we need to be like a very good at one of the technology, so that once we go out, it will become our identity, and we will be able to implement that. Yeah. So this is something I just wanted to do for you. I'm just sharing my email address with you all. I'll just put it in the chat box as well. And if you have any problem regarding anything professional, guys, so you guys can just reach me up with it. I have put my email address. Just just send me your email address and with the subject starting with buddy from the Rio College, and I'll make sure I'll revert back to all of you on this particular topic of whatever we are doing. Yeah, and would like to just wrap up my session before we go on for further round of Q&A. That make sure your life is a story and make it worth reading. Yeah, your life is actually a story. So make sure you're making it worth reading. Keep hustling, and do not leave it because it's a programming language or it's any other thing. You will find your way eventually. You will find your right niche area, but make sure that you're not wasting it. You are using it to your core end and making your life story worth reading. So yes, so I hope you all have enjoyed the session. And as I have discussed earlier, I have created a link for today's work. So I'm going to share that with you. This is a Ruya alumni page I have created on my blog. And you guys can just, all the codes what we have done today are available on this particular link. You can just go through it once. And yeah, I hope you have enjoyed the session today. It was great interacting with you all, and I'm open to any questions if you have.
Okay, all the participants, if you have any question, you can put it in the chat box. Okay, so till the point the questions are coming. Zartab, it's really, I can say that your session is really just a wrapper of everything.
Thanks,
All
God.
project tips that we have given. So as a project guide, I can expect more from the TY and the MSc batch for this year. So whatever the tips that you have given, I ensure that the student will follow all the tips. And I can see the unstoppable questions and their replies, nothing but the evidence of your session was really great. And it was really interactive for the students. After so much of time, they are getting, I think, so the feel of the class, and some senior of their age is giving them any tips regarding how to go about the project and everything. So thank you for your efforts behind this session and for giving the time for the department. In the future also, we will connect with you with all other upcoming activities. And as you have given your email address to the student will keep connected with you. Thank you. So now I request Hemangi to come forward And all the participants are requested to give the feedback for the today's session. The link has been pasted in the chat box. Thank you. So Hemangi, over to you.
Hello everyone, I am Himangi from SYBSC. A really wonderful session by Mr. Zatab Naka. So on the behalf of the Computer Science and IT Department, I would like to thank you, sir, for such an informative and interactive session and also clearing the doubts of the students. We have definitely learned a lot about microservices and Spring Cloud. The session was definitely the highlight of the evening. And your talk was particularly appropriate at this time when we are considering new initiatives for expanding growth. Also, I would like to thank the teachers of the Department of Computer Science and IT for giving us this opportunity. Uh, I take this opportunity to thank the participants from various streams for showing interest and patiently listening to the webinar. Last but not the least, a big thank for the CSIT teamwork because of which we have successfully hosted the webinar. I hope all the participants would like to participate in all upcoming activities of our department, and we will definitely keep you informed about this. On this note, I would like to conclude today's session. Now the participants can sign off. Thank you. Stay safe.
Hello, Zatta.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, it was really good session, and I
Thanks a
like
lot.
the candid pick that you have shown at the start. And I am very happy that you are that buddy from Ruya thing that you are doing it for our students. Our students will be connected with you.
Sure,
So
ma'am. I'll be happy to help anyone.
thank you so much. Wonderful,
Thanks a
wonderful.
lot. Okay, I'll sign off then, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks
Zartab.
a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Yep.
Yeah. Requesting all the participants, please fill the feedback form.